Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino, Pesci, and Keitel. Shut up and just take my money, Netflix. Hey up guys, so today's film that I'm reviewing is The Irishman, which is the latest film from director Martin Scorsese. The screenplay was written by Steven Zillian and is adapted from the novel by Charles Brandt. The Irishman stars every one of your favourite actors in the 70s. You've got Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, and Harvey Keitel. Four legends of the screen and the mob genre. So what's The Irishman about? Well, essentially the story is in fact a life story given to us from the focal protagonist of the film, Frank Sheeran, who's played in this film by Robert De Niro. The beginning of this film is actually the ending of Frank's story because all the roads that he has taken have led him to this destination. And roads is a fitting word because Frank was a driver before he got involved in the shady underworld of the Italian-American mafia. So what can you guys expect from The Irishman? Rival gangs, murder after murder, countless characters and plot threads, love, loyalty, betrayal, corruption, you know, the typical stuff you see in mobster movies. Director Martin Scorsese played a rather large part in the forging of the popularity of the mob genre with films like Mean Streets, Casino, Goodfellas, and more recently, The Departed. And you can argue that The Irishman is what you might call his magnum opus, a reflection and an acknowledgement to the contribution that he made to the genre, and he's brought all his old pals along with him to help him make it. Clocking in at almost 3.5 hours, The Irishman is a rich tapestry of storytelling, and whilst there is a lot to praise about this film, it can be a little bit of a slog. This is a very talky, long, and slow type of film. You know how when you used to go to your grandparents' house and you listen to your grandparents talk about their lives and they would just go on and on and on and on and go off on tangents that didn't even seem relevant to the story? Well, that's kind of what The Irishman is. It's one person going into insane amount of detail about their life story. It's so rich in detail and the performances are wonderful and it is a very gorgeously made film, but you can't help but feel it's been embellished a little bit too much. Martin Scorsese is a wonderful storyteller, but sometimes he just doesn't know when to edit. But even though this is a long film, there is still a lot to enjoy from it, particularly the performances from its three leading men, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Al Pacino. They are all on top form here. It's been an awesome year for Robert De Niro, and there's a chance he might be in 2 Best Picture nominees this year, Joker and The Irishman. They both have a very good chance of being up for Best Picture, but he's great in this because he's steely, but also there's a sensitive side to him. You can tell he's not all about fury and anger and rage in this. Yeah, there's a subtlety to his performance here, which I really appreciated. And then there's Al Pacino, who plays the President of the Union, Jimmy Hoffa, who is as charismatic as ever, even though he's, close to 80 now, and I thought he was phenomenal here. But the true triumph of this film definitely has to be Joe Pesci, who came out of retirement for Martin Scorsese in order to play Russell Bufalino, a small but commanding mob ringleader. He was incredible here. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. I'd even say he has a decent shot of winning it. Martin Scorsese's direction is supreme. But apart from the de-aging software that he uses on his principal actors, he's a very old school type of director. I loved his use of long takes. I love that he used practical explosions. There's a lot of car bombs in this movie, and yeah, they did it all practically, which I really liked. If Scorsese can do it without green screen or special effects, then he will. The costumes by Sandy Powell and Christopher Peterson are fantastic because you can see the gradual change in fashion as the decades move on. Whether it's the suits, the shape of their ties, you can see the little changes as history moves on. As for negatives when it comes to this film, the most obvious one that loads of people are going to point out is the fact that it is too long. I don't mind a long film, okay? But compare this to Martin Scorsese's other film, The Wolf of Wall Street, which is also over 3 hours long. That movie is long, but it doesn't feel long because you are so entertained from each scene. Like, there's no bit of that movie that I would want to cut out because it's just so much fun. Whereas this, it's quite slow and dry, and there are segments of it which definitely could have been trimmed down, if not cut out altogether. There's a subplot involving this character called Crazy Joe. This whole subplot definitely could have been reduced down to just a couple sentences, really, not expanded to be given a whole 10-15 minutes of the film. That's the thing with Scorsese, he likes telling the story his way, regardless of length. My next negative would be that the de-aging software that's used on the principal cast does push the boundaries of plausibility in places. There are times towards the beginning of the film when they're at their youngest, when they're in their late 30s and 40s, where it was a bit distracting. It was noticeable that they had been tampered with, that their faces had been edited. And that took me out of the film a little bit. Why didn't Scorsese just use younger, look-alike actors to play the younger versions of his principal cast? And then when the technology actually looks plausible to de-age them, that's where they came in. It's not awful, but it is a little bit distracting in places. Plus, no amount of computer technology can make up for the physicality of the actors' real ages. There's a very noticeable scene where Frank beats up this grocery store worker and tosses him into the street. And at this point in the movie, Frank is supposed to be 40 years old, but Robert De Niro is like almost 80. And his physicality, his composure, the way he holds himself, is of someone of a much older station. It just doesn't look like it matches up because his face is 40, but his body is like 70. So yeah, it's a bit jarring. In the end, guys, I will say I appreciated The Irishman, but I personally wasn't blown away by it. I loved watching the legends of the genre sharing the screen together once again. That was joyful. The script is full of delicious dialogue. Even though this is a drama, there are moments of dark humor in it as well. I was laughing particularly hard at one scene with Jimmy Hoffa, that's Al Pacino's character, and this other mobster called Tony, when they're arguing over punctuality. I laughed a lot in that scene. But honestly, I do think this film could have benefited from a little bit of trimming and editing. It did feel like it dragged on in a few places, and it was a bit dry as well. So time to ask the 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? That's a tough one, because even though I know this is a gorgeously crafted film, the fact that I know this is almost 3.5 hours long is quite off-putting. It doesn't have the rewatchability factor of, say, Wolf of Wall Street or Titanic, 3-hour films which you get your money's worth and thrills from. I don't know if I would want to put myself through it again, but I wouldn't rule it out. I'd have to be in the mood for it. So my answer to that is maybe. Question number 2, am I going to recommend it for you guys? Yes, absolutely. For anybody that is a fan of Scorsese, the mob genre, or any of the actors in this film, you're going to get what you want from this film. But for all of you that don't like slow, moody, mobstery type movies, then you might want to skip this one. And question number 3, what score am I going to give it out of 10? I'm going to give The Irishman a score of 7 out of 10. There we go, guys. That is my review of The Irishman. But as always, this is just one bloke's opinion. I would like to hear from you guys. Have you guys seen The Irishman? If you have, what did you think of it? My quick question for you guys today is, what is your favorite Martin Scorsese film? Wherever it is, be sure to let me know in that comment section down below. If you guys have enjoyed this video and think I might deserve it, consider hitting that thumbs up button. And of course, if you want to stay up to date on all my future content, don't forget to click subscribe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, any social media, you can find all those links in that video description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time.